Hey everybody, okay, this is going to be a relatively short video, probably in and under 10 minutes. Yes, that is short for me. And it's basically just going to be expanding on a theory that I mentioned in my latest chapter review of Bleach, chapter 613, where Kenpachi is now back in action, woo, and he's still searching for Yuichiro, and we get that brought up again, that Yuichiro is still missing, and the Squad 11 has not had any luck in finding her, and Kenpachi's still searching for her. So I mentioned in the video that I believe Yuichiro is going to be Nozarashi, or the Zanpakuto spirit for Zaraki. And a lot of people were a little bit curious of how I arrived at this conclusion, because I just kind of brought it up out of nowhere. I've mentioned this before on live streams before, but most people don't watch my live streams. They're more just focused on my Bleach reviews. So some people were like, how do you think that, Tekking? That's kind of a really out there theory. So let me just explain some of the main problems I've been hearing in the comments. Alright, so let me just go through fact first. The stuff that happens in the chapters that's indisputable. Okay, so Zaraki, he awakens his Zanpakuto in chapter 577, his battle against Gremmy. He's like, swallow Nozarashi. At this same time, Yuichiro, you see her on the ground, she's watching the fight, and you can, she goes in like an inner monologue where she's remembering that the time that Zaraki and her met, the time that she got her name from Zaraki, and after that, after the fight is over, she just kind of vanishes after that. And she doesn't just vanish, she, Kenpachi arrives to the area where she was, and all he sees is her Shihakusho and her lieutenant badge, which is still like tied around it. Like, she just basically vanished into the ether from her clothing, and then after that we haven't seen her or haven't heard anything from her since. So the idea is, some people are still thinking she's going to be popping up somewhere, like they're just going to be like, oh, there she was this whole time, or no, she ran off there somewhere. I don't believe that, and one of the reasons is that the timing is just too suspect to me. That, like, the exact moment when Kenpachi releases his Zanpakuto, Swallow Nozarashi, she vanishes. It's related in some way. It's related in some way, because why else? Like, the timing is just too perfect there. The second thing is, she didn't just leave as in she just ran away. She just vanished out of thin air, because there's, like, Yuichiro's done some pretty weird shit before, but I don't see her just, stripping and then running all over the Seireitei. So, I'm sure she didn't do that. So she vanished, and the timing was at exactly the same time as the issue with Nozarashi. Now, the reason why I didn't think this theory was viable at first is because I really didn't read these panels too much. I just assumed, like, these were just flashbacks, and I already read that part. That part was in, the anime back in the Soul Society arc. So when I first saw those panels, I didn't really bother reading them. I didn't go into that much detail in the review. I think I just said something like, oh, that she's remembering back when she first met Kenpachi, that was it. The thing that you have to look at here on these panels is it's recalling this scene right here from the anime.
Where'd you come from, little one? Why are you looking at my sword? This is no toy. It's a tool that I use for killing people.
There's no way this little infant that's like 2 or 3 years old would be able to last a day in Yukusajishi. She would be dead, long before anywhere else, nobody even cared to, look after her. So that's kind of a red flag right there, that she might have just appeared out of nowhere. And number two, when she starts, feeling Kenpachi's sword, Kenpachi's just like, aren't you afraid you're going to get cut there? And if she is truly Nozarashi, if she's related to Nozarashi, of course she wouldn't be afraid of getting cut, because that's her sword form or something like that. So those are 2 big flags there from that flashback I want to recall. So that alone right there would be enough to, after rereading those panels and, feeling the full, weight of it, that would be enough for me right there to declare that, she is Nozarashi, she's the Zanpakuto spirit in some way. The issues people have with this now. Number 1, she's been a Shinigami for many years. Number 2, she has her own Zanpakuto. What about that? Number 3, when Zaraki was first awakening his Zanpakuto, like when it first started talking to him at the end of his battle with Unohana, you hear this voice that's like, hey, Kenpachi, I've always been around you, watching and waiting. Was that Yuichiro? But she wasn't there. Okay, so the first thing is, I think someone mentioned, like, she's been to the Soul Academy and everything, so why wouldn't anyone recognize her there? She could just go through the Shinigami Academy. That was a comment I received a couple times. I just want to make it perfectly clear, there's no definitive evidence she's ever went to the Soul Society, the Academy, the Reo Academy, alright? From as far as we know, Kenpachi and Yuichiro just, showed up at the Seireitei one day, challenged the 11th squad member. He's like, hey, I'm better than you, bro. And then I think Kenpachi Kanjuro, I think his name was. And then Kenpachi killed him. and then he just took his place as the 11th squad captain, and I guess because, you know, just, hey, I'm the captain, this little pink girl's my lieutenant now, I guess that's all he needed to do. But there's no indication that they've ever went to the Reo Academy or whatever the hell that thing was called, especially since Kenpachi knows nothing about standard sword techniques or anything. I can't see Kenpachi listening to a lecture, you know what I mean? So there's no evidence that they went through the Reijutsu Academy or they did anything that would, you know, like how a normal Shinigami gets their position. You know, they have to, you know, go into the academy, train first, you know, go through the different levels, and then eventually become a seated officer. No, there's no indication that they did any of that. The thing with her Zanpakuto, and this is probably the one that's the most blatant, because it's like, she has her own Zanpakuto, so how can she be a Zanpakuto? First thing I want to bring up is that her Zanpakuto, Tempo Kenju, I think it was called, Isane mentioned it was a very odd Zanpakuto. It was the weirdest one she's ever seen. And it's because that when she goes into Shikai, her sword stays exactly the same. It doesn't change at all. The only thing that changes is it spawns two creatures behind her. The creepy-looking one with the skull and the little furry, you know, where the wild things are looking thing. Like the cousin It from the Addams Family, you know? So, and Isane's like thinking, like, that's such a weird sword, because even though Unohana's sword transforms into a creature, the sword, or in that situation, her Minazuki, the sword transforms into the monster. In Yachiru's case, the sword stays exactly the same. It's only the monsters that appear. I have a really cool theory about this. I just want you guys to pay attention. I just want to just go along with it. It's going to be a little weird at first. I just want you to go along with it. If Yachiru is Zanpakuto, then, and given her personality, she's very playful, she's very fun-loving, she's like a little girl. If that was the case, my theory is, those two monsters that were behind her, those are other Zanpakuto spirits that she called to her aid, as if they're her playmates, as if they're her friends, because she is a Zanpakuto. This would explain why her sword didn't change. Maybe that's not her sword. Maybe she didn't do a release command either. She just say Tempo Kenju. Maybe that was just like, oh, hey, can you other Zanpakuto spirits come and play with me for a little bit to help me defeat this guy? Because, you know, the sword didn't change. Maybe the sword is just a regular sword, like Stark's sword. Stark's sword is just a normal sword. Lilynet, his powers are sealed in there. So maybe that's the case, where it's like those other two creatures we saw didn't have anything to do with her. Those are just like her friends that she just plays with. And that's my theory about that, because, you know, she didn't do the release command, and she didn't have, and she didn't, you know, her sword itself didn't change at all. And Isane is still wondering, like, what the hell is that? And you know, Kubo made it a point that Isane pointed that out. You know, I don't think Kubo would have went to the trouble of Isane talking, like, having that inner dialogue about that, than to refer to, like, they're going to go back to this later. So, what my theory on the endgame of this is that Kenpachi, the next time he releases Nozarashi in battle, whenever the hell that'll be, whoever against that'll be, that's when Yachiru will appear and, you know, say, oh, I've always been with you, I've been your sword. Now, you could say maybe the sword was, like, fragmented a little bit. I mean, obviously, we've seen swords have two Zanpakuto spirits before with one blade, such as Uketake, who's, you know, he has one sword that just turns into two, but I guess they could come in all shapes and sizes. And since Kenpachi's is so different from everyone else's, the fact that he didn't know the name for so long, and the fact that, you know, like, he repressed his powers for so much, maybe that, like, Yachiru is just an extension of the main spirit of the Zanpakuto, you know, since he was repressing his powers, maybe, you know, that was the way to try to communicate to Kenpachi, because the Zanpakutos want to communicate with their master. It's not like the Zanpakutos are like, I hate you more, I hate you. No, the Zanpakuto, from what we've seen after he defeated Unohana, always was trying to get Kenpachi's attention. It's just that his power was so, you know, repressed that, you know, the spirit never had a chance to, you know, speak through to its full potential. So maybe that's it. Maybe the spirit, you know, created, you know, a physical manifestation of its form in Yachiru in order to try to communicate to Kenpachi. And now that obviously all his powers are released, and he went and, you know, he did his full Shikai release, and he unlocked his true power, Yachiru is no longer needed because it just goes back into the main sword. So that's my theory on that. Let me know what your comments are. I mean, let me know what your theories are below in the comments below. And I think, like, regardless of everything else, I think when Kenpachi shows up and fights again and uses his Zanpakuto one more time, that's when we're gonna find out about Yachiru. I'm like 99% certain. Like, when he goes Nozarashi next time, we're gonna get some enlightening on Yachiru, either that she was part of the spirit, or she showed up, or she was at some other location. But I'm pretty sure on this, from all the stuff that I've been looking at, I'm pretty sure this is a viable theory. But anyway, thanks you for watching. I might have gone a little bit over 10 minutes, but whatever. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Tekken 101 signing out.